well, when I think of the word radical, I think of, well, the definition of radical is going to the root of. And I really believe the work that went on and is still going on in the conflict transformation and community peace building is really around going to the root of who we are as individuals, going to the root of creating these capacities within ourselves to build wise relationship with our own conflict. And in that being, you know, going to the root of our own judgments, of our own assumptions, of our own biases. And then how do we bring that continuously to the work that we do? Because I think radical in the sense that this is so interwoven. And I think I say it at the beginning of the chapter, you know, it's not at the level of the UN, it's not at the level of the state, it's not at the level of nations, which it is, but for me, it starts at the level of human relationships. And so I feel that's going back to the root, you know, back to the root of how are we in wise relationships with each other. It doesn't mean positive relationships. How do we be in relationship with all that messiness, with our full humanity? Yeah, and I do think in context of the course, I think, you know, we are, at that time when I went with the chapter, we're in the Coady Institute, we're in an institute. And I think, I was thinking about it this morning around the specialness and the radicalness of being, you know, in an institute and going deep within ourselves and doing that work with each other. And I want to bring it back to Thomas, Thomas Ture, Dr. Thomas Ture, who is both of our good friend and colleague and my deep mentor, you know, and I think of him in that course. I think of him, he founded the course. I think of him standing on this peace line that was an indicator of, you know, where are our own states of peace here and right now. And Thomas breaking down and weeping on that line, a big professor in an institute, you know, just showing his emotions and not being afraid to say, this is where I am at right now. This is where, you know, this is where I'm starting with. And then allowing other people to be vulnerable and courageous to get on that line, to start really exploring what that means inside ourselves, because how do we interweave it and bring it to the state, to the nation, to the community level? By starting with ourselves first. There's stories in that chapter that really exemplify that in terms of, and maybe I share a bit of those stories around how it is at such a molecular level, you know, again, going here, and then it's at this collective level, and then it's at the personal level, and then it's at the institutional level. And I remember a story of one of the participants who talked about her own capacity to be violent, to go to a violent place. And it was around the schools, and she used to be a teacher. And one of the students had been brought up to the other teachers, and she'd given a lot of disciplinary trouble. And they ended up as a collective beating her. And this one participant couldn't believe in exploring that more, that she had the capacity to do that. And what that led to, and what happened was we were using these very participatory tools where we could start exploring some of our stuff. And she went there, which was so brave. She went there, she went into herself, she saw the violence that she, you know, perpetuated. And then she made that link to the institutional level. She made that link that that's a system that she's in. It's a very colonial system. It's a top-down system. It's a power over system. And so she started to make those links around, okay, it's not because, you know, I'm a bad person. It's not because it's because I've learned, I've been socialized. And so she was able to see that. And when she went back into her own work, she started to work towards changing some of that stuff at the institutional level in the schools, so that, you know, started to dismantle some of those colonial ways of disciplining children. So she broke it down in herself, she broke it down on that level. And so, yeah, really from the inside out, it really is about, again, how do we do that, and how do we not just stop there. Because I don't think, you know, it's not about just the personal, and we can get really involved in ourselves. And I don't think that does anyone good, you know, but I think if we're able to weave it and integrate it and start to see how it is so deeply connected to, again, you know, it's in us, and then the community, and then the national, and then, you know, even like on the state level and the policy level. For me, it's about building a relationship here and then building a relationship on the outside. About 3 years ago, we co-founded, myself and Margaret Holaz and Susan Brathwaite co-founded the Grenada Listening Project. And it really is around bringing folks together in order to learn deep, reflective, receptive listening. And we've brought it to different spaces. So we've brought it to spaces in terms of like schools, in terms of, we brought it to a space, rehabilitation and protection center, where we got the youths and the security guards to come together and be in spaces so that they can hear each other, so that they can share their full humanity, which, yeah, which isn't easy, because we're also breaking those institutional norms of the power over. So to create spaces where powerful people who are supposed to be guarding, or, you know, in that punitive position, are coming together and sharing equal space to listen to our stories. So stories have always been a really big part of this work. And then again, going with in the schools, and getting folks again in spaces to hear each other, to hear each other's stories of conflict, to be able to, you know, go at that deeper level of analyzing that conflict, that it doesn't just stay at one level of blaming, or, you know, it's this, you know, doing the othering around it, but really getting at to the deeper roots of stories, so that people can start to see, okay, you know, it's much deeper than just he said this or she said that, or he is so, or they're wicked, or they're evil, or it's so much deeper. And so it's been a lot of different spaces on the island. We've been going out in the streets and doing free listening, joining the global free listening movement. And again, with that trauma piece, you know, really trauma is not the event itself, but it's how we process that event. So even in the simplicity of going in the streets and holding up a sign and people just being heard, and gaining these skills, which I've been doing some training around, we've been doing some training around, how to listen, how to reflect back to people, how to ask open-ended questions, how to let go of our own judgments while we're listening, how to keep bringing our minds back, how to, you know, help people reach access their inner wisdom, so that they're, you know, seen and heard and validated. And, you know, we've been on the block with some of the boys, and yeah, just the opportunity for them to just say their street wisdom, you know, and to be heard, and have someone to hear them, instead of them, you know, being stereotyped and all of that. So